So let's talk about what's going on with the NFL. Because there's this growing divide, this massive clash happening between the league's huge global plans and the fans, the really loyal fans who made the sport a giant in the first place. And it all boils down to one major question. Is the NFL trading its very soul for a shot at global growth?
Okay, let's really get into it because this is about more than just football. It's about this feeling of being left behind, a feeling that millions of diehard, longtime fans are dealing with right now. We're going to break down the business moves that are driving this whole shift and really try to understand why it feels like the very people who built this league, who paid for the party, suddenly aren't on the guest list anymore.
You can pretty much pinpoint the moment all this tension just boiled over. It was one single event that became a lightning rod for this whole debate, the Super Bowl LX halftime show. It was the perfect, and I mean perfect, symbol of the massive disconnect between the league and its traditional fan base. And this table really just breaks it all down. This wasn't just about what music you like. No, this was two completely different worlds smashing into each other. On one side, you've got a fan base that grew up on English language rock and country. And on the other, a global megastar performing entirely in Spanish. It was that classic tough guy football vibe versus a style that's way more fluid and avant-garde. It was the old school media bubble crashing head on with the new reality of global streaming. Someone absolutely nailed this feeling with this quote. It just perfectly captures that sense of alienation. Just imagine you're at a huge family reunion, and the main event is a band that nobody in your family has ever heard of, playing a music that feels totally foreign. That's it. That's the frustration for millions of fans right there. So get this. On February 8th, 2026, this tension, it didn't just stay as angry tweets and comments online. No, it boiled over into a real, actual, measurable event in broadcasting, something we've literally never seen during a Super Bowl. For the very first time, fans had a real choice to make. On one channel, you had the official NFL broadcast, this huge global pop show with Bad Bunny. But then, on the other side, streaming on YouTube and Rumble, was this counter event, an all-American halftime show with artists like Kid Rock and Brantley Gilbert. And the reaction was absolutely massive. I mean, this was not some tiny protest. Over 5 million people, 5 times million, made the active choice to turn off the single biggest TV event of the year to watch something else. That is a huge number, and it sends a very, very clear message. And look, this comment from social media just perfectly sums up the raw emotion behind that 5 million number. For these viewers, it wasn't just about which song you'd rather hear. It was a statement about identity, about culture, and about what they feel the Super Bowl is supposed to be about. Okay, so this brings us to the multi-billion-dollar question. Why? Why on earth would the NFL risk making millions of its most hardcore fans, the people whose money and passion built this entire empire, feel left out? Well, the answer is a pretty cold, hard business idea called the loyalty tax. So here's the bottom line on this. The NFL is basically working on the assumption that its core fans, the ones who've been there forever, are locked in. They're betting that, yeah, you'll complain, you'll get mad, but at the end of the day, you're going to stick around. And if they believe that, well, it frees them up to stop trying to please you and instead go chase brand new audiences in brand new markets. And if you want to know why they're making that bet, just follow the money. This chart tells the whole story. A massive 65% of the league's money comes from these giant national media deals from TV and streaming companies. Only 15% comes from local revenue. You know, the actual fans in the seats buying tickets and hot dogs. The people cutting the biggest checks aren't the season ticket holders anymore. They're huge corporations, and they demand a global audience and younger fans. What this all boils down to is a classic business problem: retention versus acquisition. Do you work to keep the customers you have happy, or do you go out and try to get new ones? And right now, the NFL is placing a huge bet. They're basically trading their loyal power users for potential new users all over the world. And this comparison just lays it all out, crystal clear. For the core fan, the number one priority has always been the game itself, the tradition, the heritage. Their value to the league is measured in season tickets. But for the new target fan, the priority is the vibe, the big spectacle, the social media buzz, and their value is measured in global streaming numbers and more in sports betting. It's a total shift in what the league actually values. So, is this massive gamble going to pay off? Well, its success really hangs on 3 big things that we're watching right now. First, streaming friction.
Is there a breaking point where a loyal fan just says, nope, I'm not paying for 4 different apps just to watch my team? Second, the vibe versus the game. Does the league risk turning into a big variety show that just happens to have some football in it? And finally, Gen Z habits. What if the old fans leave, but the new fans only watch TikTok clips and betting lines? Can that really sustain this whole economic machine?
Look, for so many of these longtime fans, this is so much more than just a business strategy. It feels deeper. It feels like a betrayal of the very community and culture that propped this league up for decades, the community that paid the salaries and made it into the powerhouse it is today. And this feeling has a name now. Some people are calling it brand nihilism. It's the sense that the old handshake deal you had with the league, where your loyalty was valued and respected, is just gone. It's been replaced by a cold algorithm that is literally designed to calculate how much it can take from you before you finally walk away. That two-way street of loyalty, it's now a one-way street.
And that leaves us with the biggest question of all, one that goes way beyond just football. As more of our big cultural institutions chase global growth, do they risk losing the very soul that made them special to begin with? For the NFL and its fans, the question is a tough one. Once that connection is broken, can it ever really be fixed?